Hello, hi, Dr. Aditi Paul. How's it going?
I'm so good. Thank you so much, Omkar, for stoking my ego by calling me doctor. I have no operating chops. I'm a PhD doctor. Just putting it out there.
I feel you. Yeah, it's so nice. It's so nice to kind of touch back with you and connect with you after such a long time, almost
Such a long
seven, eight
time.
years.
Wow.
And I am super excited to have you here. Thank you for doing this for me. I appreciate
Oh
that.
my gosh, this is as much for me as it is for you. I'm so excited. It almost feels like, meeting a long lost friend. And we just got back and caught up like we never stopped chatting. So I'm always thankful for those conversations.
I know, definitely. So, for my viewers, if you don't, a little bit background, me and Aditi used to be part of a small business team about a few years back. We worked together, part of different teams, but I always looked up to Aditi because she was building the business with fierce and excitement, and a single lady building the business. Like, so many people would talk about you, Aditi, to be honest. And the way you spoke, and like at events or like just whenever you got a chance to speak, it would really impress people like me as well. I was like, oh my God, like if one day I can just speak like her, that would be awesome. And so I learned a little bit about your background into radio and stuff like that. So it was really nice. And you have been an inspiration for me. So I really thank you for that.
Oh my gosh, I'm blushing. I mean, I cannot blush because I'm brown, but I'm still blushing. Well, thank you so much. I mean, and I've looked up to you as well, Omkar, and I'm so excited that you have grown your YouTube channel, which started as a passion project during the pandemic, and you grew it to such a wonderful community of like 14,000 people. That's incredible.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, Aditi, here's the thing. So, I saw your LinkedIn post on EB1 category, and you see, I myself went through crazy challenges over last 4 to 5 years. I didn't get my H1B selected 3 times, and then I had to go back to school, and then my company applied for my EB2 category green card, and it's such a process, Aditi. I've been in America. I came to US in 2011. So this is my 11th year in America, and I'm still in the process of getting a green card. And a couple of days back, I was helping a student, and they asked me a question. So you've been in US for 11 years. You already must have your green card. And I was like, I felt I did something wrong in not getting it. And I was like, I felt like I should be saying, yes, I have one, but I couldn't answer that yes. I was like, when did I do something wrong in this? And even though it was not a personal attack, it was a curious question. But as an immigrant, if you have stayed in another country for such a long time, you feel like, why I haven't gotten it. So our viewers would love to know how we can do what you have done, how we can use your story as an inspiration and go into EB1 category, learn from you, and we would love for you to share your experience on all of this.
Yeah, and this is so right. When somebody asks us, you've been in the US for 11 years, and then you see all this outrage politically, like, are you making your voice heard? I'm like, I go to DMV and I'm treated like an other. Like, I come into the country and I'm treated like an other. And this sense of otherness takes a really long time to go away. And that's the worst thing, that the discrimination is based on your country of birth. That is, you can come to the US. I have had friends who have come to the US in 2018 and they have their green card because they've come from Bosnia and Herzegovina. And it's a small country, and the number of people petitioning for their green card is also very little. So they can even get their green card through EB3, employment based preference 3, when we
Yeah.
are dying an employment based priority 2. So you're absolutely right. That is, when somebody asks us, oh, you must have your green card, to be honest with you, that's a huge point of insecurity for us. It's a huge point of insecurity for us. And I'm not as hurt, and this is a controversial take. I have heard for the 11 years that I've been in this country, one person told me to go back to where I came from. One
Wow.
person, and that was a white guy who had snuck into my LinkedIn. He in-mailed me, like, this bugger paid money to send me
Wow.
a hate comment. Dr. Paul, he was very respectful as well. Like, he called me Dr. Paul. He's like, Dr. Paul, I do not like this aimless bickering that you have for the US immigration system. If you don't like it, why don't you just go back? To be honest with you, that's the one time that I've heard from a person who told me to go back to my country. The people who have told me to go back to my country are my own friends, because they are like, why are you staying in the US with so many struggles? You can always come back. Why are you not coming back? And I would ask myself that, all of these struggles that I'm going through, it's almost like I am choosing to go through this struggle. Because of course I can go back. India is not a war-torn country. There are multiple opportunities out there. Of course I can go back. And to be honest with you, I had no gripes going back. But I wanted that going back to be my choice, not out of desperation. And that's not something I was given the room to do. So this all goes back to that inability to get a green card through the EB2 process, because it's so bottlenecked, not because we did something wrong. It's because the immigration system is wrong. But just like anything else, something which is so personal that affects us in such a personal way, we tend to internalize it. So instead of saying, I did something stupid, we are more likely to say, I am stupid. In the same way, EB2 process is not wrong. I am wrong to even stand in this line where, to be honest with you, not everybody feels like that. And that feeling is reserved for people who have an Indian passport and a Chinese passport.
I know recently I heard that the amount of Chinese students coming to US has gone really low because of all of this, what's happening. It's affecting people negatively. And here is what I feel really, Aditi, is US is hurting themselves by doing this.
Oh, 100%.
Because here's the thing, like the ambitious people who are coming to US, who are highly talented, such as yours, they are not able to start businesses. They are not able to pursue their passion. So all they can do is their job. But you see, 40 hours of job, you can only do so much. You can contribute so much by doing other things to the American economy. But they just, unfortunately, I feel immigrants who have gotten their visas and stuff like that should be put in charge of making these kind of decisions,
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah.
And that was one of the main reasons why I so desperately pushed for EB1A, because I just didn't want to be a professor. I just didn't want to be a researcher. I love doing other things, and I don't like doing them for free. That's just the honest truth. And the only way I was going to be able to do that is not get in trouble with IRS for getting another paycheck. And in order to get to that position, I needed my green card. Now, the reality is, as much of immigration reform we hear about, and how EB2's backlog is being taken away, etc., things are not changing, at least not in the next 5 to 10 years. So what do? Do I just sit back and just take it? Or if I have the option of going for EB1, why not look through it? And as scary as it is, as overwhelming as it is, take the first step into looking at it and figure out a way.
Awesome. I want to jump back to a little bit of your background. So I met you, I believe, 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
You said you have been in US almost 11 years. So Can you tell us where you are from back in India? So some people will definitely relate to that. And why did you come to US, and what did you pursue for the 5 years? I know you're PhD, but go ahead.
Okay, if you're ready for the most uninspiring story, this is me for you. So I came to the US on a B1 visa. That's a visitor visa in 2009, because my sister was pregnant. And we had to visit our firstborn grandson. My parents had to visit him. So I came to the US as a visitor. I had no American dreams, and US was never in my radar. I didn't want to come to this country. I was so happy with my life back home in Calcutta. I was very, very active in the college circuit. I used to host shows. I just loved my life there. I saw no reason to come to the US. So when I came to the US in 2009 to visit my nephew, my sister, she is the culprit here. She has been tooting the horn of United States of America than the whole collective Republican Party. I can assure you of that. She's like, you have to come to the US, you have to experience the education system. And her selling point was professors respond to your emails. Like that was the lowest, that was her sales pitch to me. And I'm like, okay, cool.
I was set too low, you know.
The bar is set very low. And I bought it. That just tell you what the equation that we have with our professors back home is, or at least I did. So I did my bachelor's and master's in computer science. Hated it, hated every minute of it. I did not. I was in the first year of my master's program back home in India when I visited my sister. And I knew for a fact that I did not want a career in computer science. I was doing a master's just to get some legitimacy. So my sister, being the Karan Johar that she is, plotting my life for me, she said, why don't you just go to some professors in the US and just talk to them, talk to them and see if you can get into a communication program. And she got, yeah.
This time, were you in Detroit area or were
I was
you
in Detroit. I was in, this is 2009. I'm visiting my sister. And I'm in Detroit, and she's like, just hit up some professors, write emails to them. And I'm talking about the summer. So professors are a little bit flexible. So I emailed some University of Michigan professors. I emailed some MSU professors. Some of them said yes. I went and I visited them. And I said, hey, I have a background in computer science. Can I get into a communication studies program? And they said, absolutely, because you're flexible like that. They like interdisciplinary work. So that kind of got my wheels rolling that, okay, number one, I have no plan after my master's in computer science. Number two, I do not want a 9-to-5 job. I just don't want it. And number three is now I know that I have an in the US education system. So those three things together, I started prepping for my GRE. Now, why PhD?
Got it.
Did not want to do PhD. I wanted to quit studies after class 12. I do not have any scholastic ambitions. I'm sorry. Told you this is going to be a very motivational talk. What? I am not voluntarily going to choose pain in my life, But you have to pick your heart. I was like, okay, either I can do a 9-to-5 or I can get into grad school. Let me get into grad school. And my sister, again, talk about having unfair advantages in your life. My sister is the unfair advantage in my life, where she said that do not go for your master's in communication studies because number one, you do not get any funding in your master's. And you get even less funding if you're in the social sciences. You can still think about funding if you're in computer science or the mechanicals or the physicals or the biologies. But communication, absolutely not a chance. So she said, okay, why don't you get into a PhD program and then do the coursework and get a master's? As luck would have it, the PhD program that I got into, I had to graduate as a PhD. There was no master's. So I got a PhD in communication studies because it was financially responsible. That's just the honest truth.
Got it. Hold on. So did they fund you for your
Yes,
PhD?
they did. Yes, they did.
That's
Yeah.
the best.
Yeah.
Good.
So PhDs are primarily funded. That's what has been the norm. But now with US education system, and this is coming from a professor, I've been a professor for 7 years. That's the employment route I took after getting a PhD. They're primarily funded, but I'll tell you this as well. I did not get the PhD from the university that I entered the US on. So this is just to tell your viewers that if you get into a program which looked really good from India, but then you come over here and you do not see a good fit, you do not have to stick to it. You can change it. And don't let the fear of getting another I-20 stop you from that.
True. All right. So you started in 2011 then?
I started in 2010. So 2009, I go back to India, do my entire GRE, whatever prep. Then I applied to 5 universities. I chose the universities on a 60-mile radius from my sister's house. And one of them just turned out to be Michigan State, which has the #1 program in communication, at least back in the day it did. It's number 3 or 4 now.
Yeah.
But they did not give me funding, so I couldn't select them. What gave me funding was Bowling Green State University in Ohio. But I knew for a fact that I wouldn't graduate from there. So the moment I landed in the US, 2010 fall, is also around that time I started talking to other universities, Michigan State University in particular, if there was an option of me to transfer there. And that's where I got my PhD from. I transferred to Michigan State in 2011.
Got it. Okay. Wow, that's so interesting because when I met you, I knew you were from MSU. That's all I knew.
Oh, yeah.
And this is like 13 and 14. I didn't had any idea into the background. All right. So then this happened. So you graduated. So you did your PhD in US. When did you graduate in then?
2015, July
Okay.
is when I graduated. So I completed my PhD in 4 years. Again, not because I wanted to, because I got into a whole amount of trouble in my PhD where I lost my scholarship, had to pay out of pocket. It was a lot.
Got it. Okay. Oh, wow. Understood. All right. Okay. So 2015, you finish your PhD. Can you tell us a little bit about how you found your job and how you actually went to Pace University, where you currently work, and then a little bit about other things as well, like how did you kind of like, how did you get that job? Like being a professor, like it's not the route usually most international people take.
Yeah.
So I'd love to think about that.
Yeah, so a lot. You're the product of your environment. That's what happened with me, because I consciously did not select a PhD like we just talked about. It became a choice for me because it was rational at that time, and I was also getting to study something that I really enjoyed, that is communication. So when you do go into a PhD in communication, the next route is higher ed. So that's what is normalized as in conversations in the program.
Okay.
So I started applying for professorship jobs, but because my self-esteem took a huge plunge when I was getting my PhD in communication, because I was coming into a PhD program with the mentality of an undergrad, because I was pivoting from computer science to communication. I had never written a paper in my life.
You.
And I didn't know what APA was. I didn't know what MLA was. And everybody who was surrounding me, they kind of knew everything, it seemed like. And since
True.
communication is a field which is, it's not just non-immigrant, it's just predominantly white. And this is not
Yeah.
something which I am saying. We had a conference 2 years before, and the hashtag was communication so white. So
Yeah.
I had one singular person who was from India, and he just became like my saving grace. God bless you, Sujay Prabhu. That's what his name was. So I didn't have the self image to apply to larger universities. Neither did I have the criteria to be selected at larger universities. So I was looking at predominantly teaching centered universities. And that's
Got it.
where I came across the job call of Pace University, where they were looking for somebody who could teach communication and teach courses at the intersection of communication and technology. Funny how things
Oh,
work out, because I had the computer science background. They didn't have to know that I hated computer science, but I sure sold it. So I said,
yeah.
oh, yeah, I have a bachelor's and master's in computer science, so I know the intricacies and algorithms, and I have a social science background. I sold it. They bought it. So that's
Wow.
how I got to the professorship role, and I moved to New York City. And now I'm leaving that job. I'm going back to tech.
You are?
Yes, I
Wow.
am. Yeah.
Am I the first one to know this? This is so cool.
Yes. Yes, I haven't publicized it, but this is you're talking to me as the last month of me being a professor.
That is so cool. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Like, I have so many questions now. That is so interesting. Because first of all, I was like, hey, like, imagine this. So I work with a couple of universities right now, and
Yeah.
I wanted to be a professor, like an adjunct professor, because I enjoy project management. That's kind of my forte. And I wanted to teach a class in that. So I was like, okay, do I have to take special training to become a professor or something like that? Or do you just have to have a certain type of degree or expertise? So how did you become a professor?
So there's no degree that you need per se. It also depends on the position. So for me, I was the position that I got was a tenure track professor. So for a tenure track professor, a PhD is required. But like you
Understood.
said, adjunct professors, instructors, like my friend, he got a degree. He had an MFA from
Mm.
Brooklyn, and now he is teaching instructor at University of Central Florida. So
Oh,
you can be professors, and since I have the inside view of U.S. higher education system, I can tell you for a fact that a lot of universities are pivoting toward the adjunct model, where they are delegating a lot of the undergrad courses that do not really require you to get a PhD, and they're delegating all of that to adjunct professors. And it's a win-win for them because adjunct professors are not given benefits from the university. They're usually, I'm not vouching for that, they're usually at a lesser pay bracket. And all of these are professionals like you who are doing it because they want to do it. They're not looking at it as a primary source of income. So it becomes a win-win. I am forgetting the name of this guy. Probably his name is Michael. He's the head of equity and diversity in OkCupid, but then he is becoming an adjunct professor at NYU because you can just teach a Tuesday, Thursday class in the evening. And students too like that because they are like, oh, I'm getting to talk with a professional who actually has walked the walk and not just talking the.
So now you are at Pace. Okay, this is so interesting. So, all right. So 2011 MSU, 2015 you are at Pace. So what happens now? Like, okay, so you go through your H1B, and another question I have with is like, did you have to go through, is it a non-profit university where you don't have to go through? Oh, it's so cool. So tell us a little bit about that. And then when did you apply for your EB2 green card?
Yeah. Oh, I said, I totally understand you would say like, oh yeah, cap exempt sounds real nice because you don't have to go through this lottery system. I totally see that because honestly speaking, I was so, and I thank God for a lot of things that just happened when a lot of bad things could have happened to me, right? Like I could have come for a master's in communication, could have had thousands and thousands of dollars in debt, could have just not gotten a job and gone back. Like, not to say that that would have been a worst case situation, but things could have turned out unfavorably for me. But a lot of things worked out, and one of them was the cap exempt H1B. I was so hyper focused on getting employment, I didn't even think about the immigration angle. But then when I came to a university, I realized that, oh, I'm cap exempt. Can you imagine the delusion that I worked with? So for all the listeners, please know your choices. Don't just like coast on luck. So when I got the job of a assistant professor, I got a cap exempt H1B. I did not go through the lottery system. So that was a huge blessing, huge blessing. Then I started talking to my lawyer, my university lawyer, about my green card.
Okay.
Now, university lawyers can be notorious, or lawyers can be notorious, period. Because
they are.
Understand that Indian and Chinese employees, we are permanent customers, because there is no chance that we are getting our green card in the next 5 to 10 years. And in the next 5 to 10 years, I have to renew my H1B twice or thrice. That's money right into their pocket. It is actively against their interest to help you pursue your green card. So I had to have difficult conversations with my deans and contextualize my situation, because most of these people, especially in the upper echelons of higher ed, they don't know the immigrant struggles. And even if they do know the immigrant struggles, they don't know the Indian immigrant struggle. So it was on me to have these conversations with the dean and advocate for myself that I need to get started on a green card. That's how I got my EB2 started. And my priority date was 2018.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool. My priority date is June 2022. Can you imagine that?
Can you believe? Yeah.
2 months back.
Congratulations on like getting a priority date. That's a win. That's a good starting point.
It is in today's economy and today's like USCIS issues, just getting a date is crazy. It took me a year and a half to get my date.
Just to get your date. Yeah. A lot of people have to leave the country because their EB2 was rejected. Like, what are you going to do about that? Because you can only work on an H1B for 6 years. And after that, you have to keep renewing, or your EB2 or something has to be approved. Is that right? Like, for your H1B to be renewed after 6 years, you have to get an I-140 approved or have a priority date, right?
Yes. So the thing is, you got to have a priority date, number one, if you don't have an I-140. But if you're like right around, here's the thing, in simple terms, before the 6 years are completed, you have to have your I-140 to continuously keep renewing your H1B visa. And so I always tell people, don't wait till you're 4 years to start your application, because people just keep playing games, or they're just not. This is one thing I've noticed with Indian immigrants and Chinese immigrants. Outside of, like, maybe if you leave the 10%, 90% of them are not bold enough to speak up.
To
They're
speak up.
afraid.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, my company already offered me 1 month vacation this year. Because they'll be like, oh, I asked my boss, I want to go to India for a month. So my boss approved it. They're like, how can I ask another difficult question? Like, can you also do my green card this year? Or can you do my I-140 this year? So this fear of not asking questions, Aditi, is what stopping Indian and Chinese immigrants behind. Second thing is, we think that we are giving a company a hard time if I ask too many things. No, they are not able to find American people. That's why you're working there. That means they need you more than you really need.
That's true.
If they could find an American person, they would hire them. You wouldn't be working.
You wouldn't be working for them. That's exactly right. That is absolutely right.
It's in your rights to ask whatever you need related to immigrations. You can ask it. And like, if your company like just lets you go, or like they threaten you or something like that, that's the wrong place to work for. And it's also toxic environment, in my opinion.
It's right, because we also, and I completely get that, because when you are a student, or when you just got a job, we are so thankful to get a job that we are like, let me coast through it. It's very hard. Like, and as much as we say this, that, you know what, firing you and hiring somebody new will cost them more money than entertaining some of your requests. And organizations need to get that. We should not gaslight ourselves into thinking that, oh, I need to speak up. Well, if the organization is not making room for you to speak up, then it's time that we start questioning the organization, and or the people who are working for it, like lawyers who are working for it. Talking about, speaking up for yourself, the reason why I went from an EB2 to an EB1, again, bless my sister, she started letting me know that if you are going to the EB2 route, you are looking at egregious waiting times. And I was like, hey, okay, all right, now I have to ask for something again. There was a knot in my stomach. And then, listen, I'm a cheap Indian. I mean, not all Indians are cheap, but I am that stereotype. I was like, paying $5,000 to a lawyer for an EB1, I am not doing that. So to be honest with you, I was penny wise, pound poor, because I was willing to save $5,000 and barter the next 15 years of my life. How royally, like, just stupid can you be? I was trying to look for a better word than synonym, but then I'm like, yeah, you are stupid now. Like, you shouldn't be thinking like that. So my sister actively asked me to pursue my lawyer for an EB1. Now, when you do bring that up to your HR is going to ask the lawyer that, yo, this person, our employee is telling us we need to go the EB1 route. Should we go for it? Now that's where your lawyer becomes very key, because these people don't know anything other than what your lawyer is telling them, right? So my lawyer, as much of the immigration hassle that she knows, she said, I can see it could be advantageous for Dr. Paul to get the EB1 route. If you knew the immigration system, you should have told them that, yes, she should absolutely go for that. But other than that, she's looking for a 30-year period of waiting to getting her green card. So she kind of like, she did advocate for me, but she could have advocated much aggressively. Now you have to realize that when I get my EB1, I am one client less for my lawyer. I'm getting out of the pipeline. So they are gonna make it really hard for you. So you got to play your hands correctly. I didn't have a strong hand up until 2019, when I had a rude awakening in my office space, where my office environment became very, very toxic. And I knew that I cannot be here for the long run. And if I am still on my H-1B cap exempt, if I'm still in my EB2, there is no way am I going to be able to leave. So I started aggressively building my profile, and also advocate for myself to my dean. After a long strike of having personal conversations and much perusal, After much persuasion, my dean said that, okay, we are going to pay for your lawyer fees. Let's get your process started. I got a yes from the deans in writing in an email in 2019 November.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
This
That they
is
were
like, this is not too long ago. This is like this
very,
thing.
very
Yeah.
recent. Yeah.
Around the 2 years of pandemic, actually, so
Yeah.
this is right.
So when the pandemic hit, now we are by our bootstraps. Like, pandemic hits in March 2020. Now all the conversations that I've had, everybody has been taking losses. Now we're having conversations with the department that, oh, there might be even job cuts, and there's a possibility of our salary going down. Like, speak of what you were talking about right now, that, oh my gosh, I've asked my lawyer so much and my university so much, I shouldn't be asked for something else. That was a
True.
dominant fear in my head, where I was like, oh my gosh, should I like rehash the conversation that I had with like the university about starting my green card?
Yeah.
Because here people are talking about like getting salary cuts, and here I'm asking the university to pay for $5,000. It did not help me that the dean who said yes had also quit. So we had a new dean.
Always happens. It always happens. You won't believe it. Like, the HR who supported me for years
Yeah.
exactly quit when I started my process.
Can
for
you
GC.
believe? Can you believe?
It's always like the good people always leave. You know, unfortunately.
That's what
Yeah.
she was. Yeah, the good people leave, just like me. I'm leaving. But she was still in the university, but she stepped down from the role of her dean. But this is
Okay.
also a point where I want to like pause and talk about this. This is something that a lot of African American women talk about this in the TikToks. They say that you should not have any conversation and not have a paper trail following that. So whenever you have conversations, always send a follow-up email acknowledging the conversation that you had. So when I had that first conversation with the dean, I had a paper trail going on. Like, Dean Herman, thank you so much for meeting with me and for agreeing to pay the lawyer fees. I'm very excited to get this process started, and I CC'd everybody. So I used that email to pitch it to the new dean. And then they took their sweet time. They were like, Dr. Paul, we are just looking at our finances to decide whatever is happening. This is 2020 November. So we have already crossed 1 year of me waiting after getting an approval. So by 2020 November, we finally get the process started, because the lawyer was like, as long as I'm not getting the money from the university, I'm not starting your process.
Ah, understood. Okay, wow. So 1 year just went in like circles.
Just
You lost a year.
circles. And I also, like, I was so afraid during the pandemic to reignite this conversation. I also took a step back. And then, like, one fine day, I'm talking to one of my friends. She is a vocal advocate of talking about immigration issues. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't wanna be in this position. Let me again talk to my deans. Everybody who's listening to this, as confident as I sound right now, understand I had so many moments of insecurity, where every cell in my being was telling me to not send that email. And I used to shut down the computer when I send that email, but feel the fear and do it anyhow. I cannot begin to tell you how important that is. That just ask for it. The worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to hear a no. You're going to survive. That's going to give you a moment to reflect and etch out a new plan. But if you never ask, that comfort is going to steal you from like years and years and years of absolute pain. So don't let that false sense of comfort dissuade you from taking a bold step right now.
Never regretted an email I've sent so far.
That's true.
I've never done that.
That's true. I've regretted texts, but not emails.
I know. And another thing that really helps is like building that relationship with your manager. Today I have a manager, his name is Matt. But he is so phenomenal. He understands my pain. I have built that relationship with him. I explain them, hey, this is affecting me. This is affecting my mental capability on a weekly basis. It sometimes, like, some things put you in fear. You're like, for example, I was going to India and I had to get my H1B stamped and come back. I was like, dude, I am a little bit worried that if I'm going to be able to come back or not. I'm letting you know. So it's just like having these tough conversations with somebody in your company who you report to really helps, because maybe these people have never experienced this, but then some of them are kind. Some of them have that empathy that they will understand, they'll relate to you. And if you have someone like that in your back, oh, it's so much easier. Like he advocates for
Absolutely.
me today. Before I send an email, he sends an email. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you got to
So
have people like that on your side.
that's only way, like you have to have people on your side. Yes. Awesome. So November 2020 you start. So this is where my question comes in, Aditi. I've looked into the today morning, I went through a lot of different things, and I looked into EB1A category. So there were three things I looked into: extraordinary ability, outstanding professor and researchers, and multinational manager and executive. So that is EB1A, EB1A, EB1, is it like B and C? Is that how it works?
So it's EB1A, EB1B, EB1C.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you go through the professor and researcher route, or did you, okay, because your profile fits in that. Okay, this November 2020, first day of you starting this process, you don't know anything about anything. So who helped you pick up these things? Like, did you yourself make calls like, okay, this is the route I'm going? Or did your attorney made calls for you, be like, okay, this is how we are going to do, this is what you should do? How did that process go?
Yeah. Talking about the EB1A, EB1B, and EB1C route. So EB1C is possibly like, large, like managers like Sundar Pichai type people, maybe like, they are highly paid, etc. Or if you can build a business and hire 10 employees like a millionaire, you can get your green card through that process. Clearly, I did not have $1 million lying in my bank account. I'm a professor at the end of the day. So I had to go through the EB1 or EB1A or EB1B route. Now, the reason I chose EB1B is because my employer was willing to petition for me. So a lot of times that's not a given. I was speaking to a professor from University of Wisconsin, where their lawyers or the university is not going to apply for your green card through the EB1B process before you get your tenure. So only after you get your tenure, which could be 6 to 8 years, that's when they start the EB1B process. Fortunately for me, there was no such clause, and the university, because I had these conversations, they were ready to petition for me. So I went through the EB1B route. Now, there are tactical benefits of going through EB1B, because in EB1B, you are demonstrating your extraordinariness in a very niche area. So you're demonstrating your extraordinariness as a researcher or as a professor. So EB1A, you are just demonstrating extraordinariness across the field. So over here, I am competing with other professors. Over there, I'm competing with everybody. I'm competing with a Pulitzer Prize book winner. I'm competing with everybody. So it's a larger category. The benefit of EB1A is that you can do it independently. So you're by yourself. You can hire a lawyer to do that, but you do not need anybody to petition for you, which is another advantage of EB1B, because there's such a thing, and I'm going to be very nerdy for a little bit. That is, if you think about warranting theory says that I am more likely to believe you if somebody else believes in you. So if Omkar Jagdale comes to me and says I am awesome, versus if I go to Matt and Matt says, oh, Omkar is great, now I'm more likely to believe you because somebody else is vouching for you. In the same way, if you have a person or an institution who's petitioning for you, in and of itself has some validity to it, right? Not every organization is petitioning to keep a person in the country. So when I got the EB1B route, I went for it. Now, my lawyers helping me, they did not help me one bit. It's, this lawyer ghosted me for 7 months. I had a chip on my shoulder when I started working on an EB1B. Having said that, the lawyer should have been more responsive. I didn't wait for the lawyer to be responsive because I started having conversations about EB1 back in 2015. I started having conversations with people who were in my cohort, who came with me. For example, one of my friends, Dr. Shayan Roy Chaudhary, he got his PhD from Stony Brook. Then he went straight from an F1 to an EB1 because he had a stellar profile. And when I talked to them back in 2015, he had forwarded some letter of recommendations that his recommenders wrote him. So I kind of knew that there's such a process called EB1. Now, when I was talking about being a product of your environment, because I was in a PhD program, albeit in a social sciences, which is far less common in the Indian community, I had a lot of people who got their PhD who were in the physical sciences were Indian as well. And I had conversations with a lot of them. I kept having these conversations. So I knew what the lay of the land looked like. So I knew I had to get publications. I knew I had to get citations. I knew I had to get letter of recommendations. I knew all of these things. So I started checking those boxes. But in 2021, after ghosting me for 7 months, and after multiple follow-ups, I went to my head of the department who couldn't help me. Then I went to the dean. Then the dean told me to go to the vice president of human resources. And the vice president of human resources reached out to the lawyer, comes back and tells me, oh, we haven't even started your petition. This is September 2021. They haven't even started my petition. And
this is last year.
Yeah. In September 2021, my petition has not even been filed. And I'm like...
So they have not even worked. Like, is it just like... So basically, this is same as November 2019.
This is November 2019. That's exactly right. So September 2021 is November 2019, except for multiple followers from me. So I have been... And the worst was in 2020, November 2020, when the process started, the lawyer started sending me paperwork, and I was so confident that, okay, this is going to go through in January. I'm going to have my green card in 2021. Amazing. My life is set. January 15th, all of a sudden, she stops messaging me. And I'm like, what happened? Like, did I do something wrong? And I had more publications now than when I started. So, like, what happened? And I just couldn't get through. After multiple follow-ups, September, I finally get word from the vice president of human resources who says, Dr. Paul, the labor immigration lawyer got back to us and said, and he gave me just the most anxiety-inducing, psychologically debilitating paragraph from the lawyer saying that we have not filed for Dr. Paul's petition because there's a high chance of it getting rejected. We just filed a petition for somebody who had 300 citations, and her profile got rejected because USCIS officers indicated that they do not have international acclaim. And I'm like, could you not have said this to me earlier? I had the entire year. And when I tell you, Omkar, from September to December, the amount of work I put in, just drunken on zeal work, just figuring out any and every opportunity to make sure that my name is out there, not only in the US, but the entire, sorry for the F word, that's what I did. September to November, I was gung-ho that, okay, if this is the only thing that's stopping me, I'm going to figure out ways to put my name out there and get cited.
Got it. So this is September 2021 to December 2021.
Yep.
To your website, I looked at what the things you have worked on, and I was so impressed. And I was like, wow, like this is what my question was. Like my biggest question to you and my viewers, Aditi, is going to be this. I'm a master's student. I'm an average student in America. I have 3, 4, 5 years of experience in US. That means I'm here only for 7 years. I have not done shit in America. Let's be honest. Most master's students never publish. They never publish a single paper. They're never going to, because they're like general degrees, computer science, electrical engineering and stuff like that. An average student. They have never done anything extraordinary. They're just going back and forth from work, like 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5. They're not really putting in that crazy amount of work. Can I still get EB1? Like, so this is where, all of these people have questioned. Can I still get EB1? So what do I need to do from today for another year to get this? Yeah, go ahead.
How cruel is it going to be? I'm like, nope, not a chance. I'm sorry. Bye. No. Listen, I'll tell you this. I'll tell you. Okay. This is how I'm going to explain it to you. This is going to require like statistics 101 knowledge for you. So if you have variable A and you have variable B, variable B is green card, EB1, and variable A is your degree. Is there a relationship between you getting a PhD and getting your EB1? Absolutely. But is it going to be the cause for which you're going to get your EB1? No. It
Huh.
is not a surety that you are just waiting for your EB1. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, if you get your PhD and get your EB1. Absolutely not. It's not going to do that. Of course, it looks good on your profile if you're trying to assess somebody that are they extraordinary, and if you see they have a PhD. PhDs are less than 0.1% of the entire world's population. By definition, you are extraordinary. But is it
True.
extraordinary enough to get you to EB1? No. So it is not
Mm.
foolproof that you're going to get EB1 just because you have a PhD. I've had friends who have a PhD. I was that friend who had a PhD and simply did not have their EB1. We all have our own misgivings. Now, when it comes to masters,
Mm.
do you have to put a little bit extra work to get EB1? Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not if you have to put in effort, it's when you have to put in effort. So you got your master's in 1.5 years, you worked for 6 years, and now you're thinking about your EB1.
Yeah.
PhDs have worked for 10 years, then got their EB1. So we are putting in work no matter what, right?
True.
It's not, there's no easy way to EB1. You have to work, period. Put that in your head. Nobody's EB1 is a cakewalk. If there is a cakewalk EB1 situation, I would encourage you to not be friends with them because they're highly unrelatable. I don't want to talk to you. Tell me the person who has struggled and I can learn from them. Now, if you're a master's, this is something that I've been actively doing through my LinkedIn. That is, there was nobody to tell me, Omkar, when I came to America for a PhD or a master's to start working on or to think about these are the struggles that we have to get into.
Mm.
I mean, and we're also tired, right? Like coming to the US also takes such an arm and a leg effort. Like
Yeah.
if you have to come to the US in 2020, you're thinking about it from 2016, 2017, 2018. It's a
True.
long game. The last thing you want to do is come over here and think about something again. You want to coast a little. You want to go out there and experience the pleasures of America and do work.
Mm.
Understand that the network and the resources that you have as a master's student dwindles infinitely when you go into the workforce. Because when
True.
you're in a university like Michigan State, you have access to 43,000 students and the resources that comes with it. I came to Pace University. I have 7 employers. I have seven people who I work with and a couple of hundred students. My resources went from this to this. But if I had used my PhD, if I had used my master's to start working on my EB1 slowly but surely, how far would I have been by now? So the thing that I applied for in 2021, I could have at least applied for it in 2017, wouldn't I? But I didn't know any better, so I paid with my time. So that's what I would tell master's student. That is, look at the criteria that need to be satisfied, identify the lowest hanging fruit, and then talk to people in your department to knock off some of those pointers so that when you do go for a job and you're starting to build your EB1, you have something to go off of rather than starting from ground zero.
Okay, so oh wow, this is so interesting. I just did my master's, Aditi, like from 2019. So while you were figuring this out, I was figuring out my H1B issues and stuff like that. So I did a master's from 2019 up to 2021. Last year I graduated, and that's when I started looking into EB1. And I started looking into finding out all this information. So I knew about EB1 also way back, like 2015. I knew about these things way back, but not exactly, like, not looked into it really in depth. So when I started looking at it last year, I was like, holy cow, like if I had known about this while I was doing my master's, I would have written some more papers and got them published. I was like, master's is like the time frame to do all of this. And so I was like, wow, I'm finding about this a little bit later because now I have to restart writing these papers. I have to restart doing all of this again. So this is where, I was like, okay, somebody who's done their master's, let's say 3, 4, 5 years ago, they've been working for 5 years. So, you have used this word work, right? You have to do the work. You have to do the work. People don't know what they have to do, So like, maybe can you give us maybe 4 to 5 pointers on what work you did? You said I went to work from September to December. What did you really do? Like, what is citations? What is publications? How do you get international acclaim? You wrote a book. Love to hear about that as well. So can you maybe like take next 5 to 6 minutes just to talk about all these things
Yeah.
to you?
Yeah, you have to do the work. Now, what I knew, how do you assert international acclaim? So what I did was, before you start off accumulating new work, this is something that I'd learned in my PhD and my research as well. So whenever, like, as a young PhD or a young researcher, the first thing you want to do is you go to your professor and you're like, "Ooh, I found out this really exciting area. I want to do this work. This is how I'm going to do it, yada, yada, yada." And then the professors are like, "Listen, cute, but you're not the first person to think about this. Like, people have done the work before." So like, I understood the importance of stopping on my tracks and looking what has already been done before me. So I stopped in my tracks and I looked for work that I had already done that I can contextualize as international acclaim. One of them was going to conferences. So as a PhD researcher, as a professor, I was very, very active in going to conferences and presenting my work. And going to conferences has a lower approval or a lower bar to complete than publications. So my conferences were in Thailand, my conferences were in Colombia. In effect, those are international acclaim. So I can contextualize those as that. Then necessity is honestly the mother of invention. So when I knew that I had to get my name out there, a good thing about being Indian is India is international. So you have come to the US, maybe if you, low chances that you've come here for undergrad, high chances you've come here for your master's or beyond. So you've come here by the time you're 22, 23. That means you've done 21 years of work in India. You have connections. Can you use those connections in some way? I'll give you an example. We all had tuition teachers, right? When we were growing up. This tuition teacher was my sister's tuition teacher who taught her English. And she left Kolkata to go to Mumbai when my sister was class 5. So we had a really good collegial relationship with them. This tuition teacher had 2 daughters. One of them is a professor at Tata Institute of Social Sciences. My sister gave me her profile. What I did was I was just fascinated by her. So I went ahead and I added her on LinkedIn and I said, her name is Mampu. And I was like, "Hi, Mampu Didi, you don't remember me, but I'm Goody. That's my nickname. And you used to come and teach your mom used to come and teach my sister." And we just rekindled our relationship from there. And I talked about my research. She's an assistant professor at Tata Institute of Social Sciences. She talked about her work. And I said, "Mampu Didi, can I give a guest talk in your class? Can I do that?" She invited me. She sent me a letter. Guess what? Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Asia's oldest and #1 institute of social sciences. I have a personal invitation from them to give a lecture. How many people can say that? So this all goes back to how much you can milk off of the effort that you've already put in and think strategically.
You have like kindled so many like dreams in my brain right now while you're talking this, Aditi. You won't believe it, because I was recently in India for a month, and my own college, like I went to see my principal and I told her that, "Hey, this is what I've been up to for last 10 years, and so we talked about it, and she was like, "Can you come and speak for my school? I would really like to have you." And I was like, "I'm here for 2 more days, but maybe I can, let me touch base with you again and I can do it." So, when you're saying, such kind of opportunities, everybody else has it. Like, they are part of a school they went to. They can just go back home and do a talk, and that's international acclaim. If we see, it's about, how you word it, how you put things forward is so critical. Everybody can do it, but we just don't know how to do it,
Exactly.
Wow, that is so amazing. Like, because one of the videos you made recently, like extraordinary abilities, and you're saying about that, like USCIS really scares you, international acclaim.
Yeah.
And what you have done, Aditi, here is you have broke those myths down for like a lot of people. Like, because for me right now, at this point, like even before our podcast, I was like, I think Aditi is like, she has amassed a PhD and like all this work she has done. She's a professor. She's way ahead in life from where I am. Or in terms of EB1, that's what I was thinking. I was like, no way I can ever apply for this or ever I can do this. But now that you have talked and you have talk and like explain these things, every time you said something, I was like, oh, I can do this too.
Yes.
I can, oh, I've done this at my work. I can bring that experience into this. So this is so much value added, Aditi. I really appreciate it.
Gosh, thank you. And I'm so glad that because that's what we need, right? We need some hope. We need this thing to sound like something I can do. Because, Onkar, we are hardworking people. That's what I can flex for days about India. I don't have to know you personally. If you are a person who's come to the US for your master's or your PhD, and you're from a fairly middle class or like higher middle class or whatever family, I know for a fact that you can work hard. I know you have a fact that you have a figure it out mentality. We just need guidance and reassurance, and just this image that this is digestible, this is doable, and we need to find an environment that fosters that sense of self-worth and confidence in us. Rest, we can do it.
Definitely, Aditi. I absolutely agree with you. So I think, I think I got everything I needed here, Aditi, to be honest, like that. Yeah. And like, I really appreciate that. But here's what I'm going to do for our listeners. And I also want to ask you, so where can our listeners connect with you? And if they're looking for, let's say they want to go through EB1 and they need someone to look at their profile, do you have a program or do you have a consulting kind of thing where you are actually offering these services? They would love to know, because I know your LinkedIn profile, where can they connect you? And then you have a program where they can connect.
Absolutely. Happy to, and that's the first thing that I did. I am a big believer in hiring personal coaches. That's what I did. We didn't get to talk about it, but when I published my book, and this was a part of my EB1, where I knew that I had to publicize my book. Like, nobody's going to come and tell me, oh my God, Dr. Paul, you've written a book that's so wonderful. Like, let me cite it. Nobody's going to do that for me. I need to do the work. So I hired a social media manager. And she's helping me build LinkedIn. Could I have done it without her? Absolutely. But is she saving me time and guiding me what the next step should be? 100%. So yeah, can you do your EB1A? Absolutely. But if you have the financial means to hire a coach, hire a coach. That's what I would say. Yeah. Even if you can shave off 2 years of your life from this struggle, number one, mental health, and number two, think about launching a business in those 2 years and the amount of money that you can make from there. Like, why would you want to delay that? So to that end, yes, I do coach. You can always reach out to me at Dr. Aditi Paul on LinkedIn. That's my LinkedIn handle is linkedin.com/en/Dr. Aditi Paul. My website is my website is draditipaul.com. And you can also add me on my Twitter, but I'm not very active. It's I am Aditi Paul. Please reach out to me. If you want one-on-one advice, happy to assist you with that. I do have a program to help you. It's a 5-week one-on-one consulting program that gives you access to my materials as well as me personally. And if you are one of those people who are like, let me assess this, let me dip my toes before investing money, I have a Slack channel which has grown up to 536 people. Please consider joining that, not for me, but to network with other people and figure out a win-win solution. So if you are a master's student who wants to get their word out, there are people who are getting their PhD in computer science. There are machine learning architects in Amazon. Talk to them, figure it out. If this is an Indian problem, it's going to take an Indian mindset to solve it. And one of the best things as Indians we have is an infinite network of people to work with. So you don't have to go through this alone. Go through this together. And as you're going through this, don't forget to grow through this as well.
Amazing. Wow, that's excellent, Aditi. I'm going to post every single link here and also in my description on this video so that people can get access to you. So I would say LinkedIn is the fastest way to get a hold of you then.
Absolutely. LinkedIn is where I'm at. And the Slack channel is also where I'm the most active.
Amazing. Wow. Thank you so much, Aditi. Thank you a million times, because you have broken down a lot of myths and you have gone ahead and, successfully got your EB1 green card. And that is that itself gives a lot of people hope, but just like you sharing this also adds so much value to people. So thank you
Absolutely.
very much for being here today. I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. And also subscribe to Omkar and support him. You're making space for a lot of uncomfortable conversations and authentic conversations. And I wish I had something like this when I was going through the struggle. So thank you for holding space. Thank you for building a community, and thank you for helping other people.
Absolutely, Aditi. Great. Always a pleasure talking
All
to you.
right.